This is a meeting of the Athens Board of Zoning Appeals. The time is 7:01 p.m. and the date is Tuesday, November 14, 2017. At this time, I will call the meeting to order. The board consists of 5 members and 2 alternates, the alternates taking full part in the discussions and becoming a voting member in the absence of a member or when a member abstains for conflict of interest. Present tonight are Ms. Betty Hollow, Mr. Ed Baum, and Mr. John Guttekinst will be the voting member tonight. I am John Goldsey, the chair. Also present are Mr. Rick Soroyce, the zoning administrator, and Mr. Paul Eschenbacher, the secretary. As you can see, we only have 4 members tonight. And I try to usually get 5 members. And we do a good job, except tonight we have 4 members, and I apologize for not having advance time to inform all of you. So you do have an option to either be heard with 4 members or postpone the meeting to next month. However, if you agree to be heard tonight, you still need 3 votes for the variance to pass. So if the vote happens to be 2 and 2, you don't get the variance. So is that agreeable to all parties for both cases? Okay. At this time, I invite you to view a pre-recorded video on the rules and procedures of the board.
The Athens Board of Zoning Appeals operates according to the following procedure. The chair will name and describe the case. The zoning administrator or secretary will state the basis of the objection and any applicable facts or conditions pertaining to the case. The appellant or their representative will give reason why the appeal should be viewed favorably. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of the request will be heard. Anyone wishing to speak in general comment will be heard. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition will be heard. If necessary, the appellant or their representative will offer concluding, summary, or rebuttal remarks. Testimony from the floor shall be closed. The board will deliberate and render a decision. According to Athens City Code, Section 23.07.03b, the board has power to grant variances from the strict application of the code, provided the variance will not be contrary to the public interest, the spirit of the code is observed, public safety and welfare are secured, and substantial justice is done. According to Athens City Code, Section 23.07.10c, variances from the code shall not be granted unless the board makes specific findings of fact, based directly on the particular evidence presented to it, that the standards and conditions imposed in this title, if applicable, have been met by the applicant. Exceptional circumstances. There are exceptional or extraordinary circumstances or conditions applying to the property in question or to the intended use of the property that do not apply generally to other properties or classes or uses in the same zone. Practical difficulty and undue hardship. Because of exceptional or extraordinary circumstances or conditions pertaining to a specific piece of property, a literal enforcement of these regulations will result in practical difficulty or undue hardship that is unnecessary to the achievement of public purposes. Preservation of equal property rights. Literal interpretation of these regulations would deprive the appellant of rights commonly enjoyed by others in the same zone and the same vicinity, while a granting of the requested variance will not confer on the applicant any special privilege that is denied to other properties in the same zone and the same vicinity. Minimum variance. The variance granted is the minimum variance required to make possible the reasonable use of the property. Absence of detriment. The authorizing of such variance will not be of substantial detriment to adjacent property and will not materially impair the purpose of the zoning code or the public interest. Not of a general nature. The condition or situation of the specific piece of property or the intended use of said property for which variance is sought, one or the other or in combination, is not of so general or recurrent a nature as to make reasonably practicable the formulation of a general regulation for such condition or situation. Any person, resident, or officer, department, or appointed body of the City of Athens, aggrieved by a decision of the Board, may petition the Athens County Court of Common Pleas concerning the illegality of the decision. Such petition must be filed within 30 days after the mailing of the decision of the Board to the applicant. Thank you.
There are two cases on tonight's agenda. The first case is 17-25V. The property is 237 West State Street. And the second case is 1726V. The property at 14 North High Street. The Board is required to take testimony under oath. Would anyone wishing to speak concerning any item on the agenda please stand? Do you swear or affirm that any testimony you will present to the Board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you. Be seated, please. Again, our first case is case number 17-25V. The property is at 237 West State Street. Zone is M. RBC Architects are the appellant. The appellant is requesting a variance from ACC 23-1001, Table A, a schedule of bulk controls to allow an alteration to a building with a right side setback of 10 feet, where 25 feet is the minimum requirement. And I understand that 25 feet is only required because it's adjoining an R zone.
R zone, that's correct.
Is there any other restriction for having a brewery close to a residential area?
We've already gone through all that.
Okay.
It's already been approved to the BZA earlier on for all the other stuff.
Okay.
So this just kicked in because of
Just
that
because of
extension.
that.
Yeah.
Okay. I was just curious for my own knowledge that if
Yep.
there
Everything
was,
else has been approved.
Well,
yeah.
I think the Board should understand why, what the proximity of this to a residential area means and how you figure that out. Could you just tell us how you dealt with that?
Well, it was required that because of the R zone, and you had to have 100 feet of distance from an R zone for bottling works, or as we classified as bottling works for the brewery. So we went through and did all the measurements, and now it's subjected to Title 41 because this little extension, it had the setbacks before. And now what this little setback is doing here, this little additional storage area, is taking it close to the R zone,
Okay.
which is requiring that kicks in for Title 41
Okay.
just for that.
Okay.
So it's just an odd incident there overall.
anything else you would like to add from the code office? Any questions for the code office?
Correct me if I'm wrong, but to the west of that spot, there were really no buildings for several hundred feet.
That's correct, yeah, there's nothing there. It's just a zone.
Okay, would the appellant please come to the podium and state your name and your address for the records? And if yes, good.
The pictures that you're looking at show the exact site. I can actually this indicates neighboring property, and they have dumpsters right next to where we will be putting the storage unit.
Okay, they agreed to move those?
No, they'll be keeping those.
Oh, they're keeping them,
Yes.
so you still have room?
Yes.
Okay.
In fact, I've got a picture.
Okay.
This is the edge of the building right here, where the storage area will be.
Okay.
And if you look at these this is here, and then this is just standing in one place and turning.
Right.
So you can see the building will be here, and then the dumpsters are right next to it. And I also brought additional.
Right, okay.
I already have these, but
We have those. Standing here.
We already have those. Are there any changes here?
no.
Oh, so we've already got those.
Okay.
Good, thank you. Good. All right.
That's this.
Yeah.
Oh, I can show you, so you guys understand as well.
Yeah,
when you
this
look
is,
at the
this,
photos.
this starts here and works that way, correct?
Yes, so these are the dumpsters that you're looking at there,
Gotcha.
and then there's one more picture.
There it is.
Yeah, there we go. We turn it that way.
Okay.
So this is that edge of the building here,
Okay.
and we're just wanting to put a storage space there.
Right there.
Right there.
Okay.
My name is Mike Crothers with RVC Architects, and we'll be discussing a storage
Did you
unit
state your address, please?
at 131 West State Street.
Okay.
What we are requesting is a variance to permit a 10-foot northwest setbacks where a 25 is required. The reasoning we're requesting it is that on that property line, there's actually on the neighboring property a 20-foot easement. So within 20 feet, the neighbor can't build anything within that setback. In addition, they have their dumpster on that property line. So there is no concern for anyone building close to the storage area. That they'll be, that easement just simply won't allow anything to be built close. So that's why we were hoping to get this setback, this variance. For the reasons for practical difficulty, when you look at the site, the terrain of the site does not actually lend itself to allow us to put this storage unit on the East State Street side, nor can we really put it on the side next to the other M use that's next door. We also looked at potentially putting it into the parking lot, but then that takes away from the parking. And with the nature of what we're storing there, we wanted to not have it exposed to vehicles. It fits very nicely within this space, and it protects it to some degree. The exception of circumstance, we saw it as it's part of the production process, and it is something that we do need. If we don't receive the variance, it means that it has to be done off-site, which could create a little bit of issue.
I'm going to interrupt you right there.
Sure.
And talk about exceptional circumstance. And the circumstance actually often relates to the topography or the hilliness or the rockiness or the something. So really your exceptional circumstance is the terrain, and that in itself creates the difficulty. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
I have some more lessons for you too as we go along.
Okay, sure.
about the findings. Okay.
Okay,
Just so you know.
sure. When it comes to preservation of equal property rights, the way we see it is usually if we were adjoining another M property, we would be allowed to put the shed there wouldn't be any setback requirements. It's only that the R1 kicks it into the 25-foot setback. And normally if we didn't have the easement, I would say, okay, we've got to keep that setback. But since we already have the 20-foot on the neighboring property that can never go away, we felt that gave us equal property rights to anyone who is also in an M zone. The minimum variance, talking to Kelly, what he's looking at storing is 9 53-gallon wood barrels, and we're trying to maintain a 10-foot 10 turning radius within the space for a forklift to get in to be able to. So we haven't pushed it to extremes. We've tried to keep it as minimal as possible for the storage that he needs. With absence of detriment, we discussed that with the about the easement. That's where we felt that that helped us.
And again, the question here is there going to be detriment to the surrounding buildings and their occupants? Mm-hmm. And I think you're far enough away from the residential people that there's not going to be a detriment to them, and clearly there's not going to be a detriment to those, whatever it is that you're worried about, right?
So we're pretty good on that.
Okay.
Well, this is basically such as maybe noise of the operation or maybe odor that might be affecting the neighbors. Those are the concerns.
Okay, and maybe Kelly can talk about if there's any issue about.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Come on up.
Come on up. Yeah, you could. Both of you could be there. Or all four of you.
84 2nd Street's my personal address. And we did discuss these issues during the prior two variance hearings, which occurred. I wish I had dates.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Yeah, I remember now.
Yeah.
You know, and
Ms. Kornansky brought all this up.
Yeah.
So all these issues were discussed, and everyone seemed to be pleased at that
Oh,
point
you
in time.
speak up just a little.
And the
I'm a little
variances
hard
were-
of hearing.
I understand. The variances were granted after these discussions did occur
Okay.
in the last hearing, if that is enough. And basically, it came down to Miller's Poultry or Chicken now puts out more aromas than we will be.
Yeah. The odor is actually good.
Yes. Aroma,
tired
we'll
of
call it. We'll call it. It's definitions, semantics are fun.
The other thing that I have as a question is, you have a large space for parking.
Mm-hmm.
So will there be instances eventually where that parking space gets some tables and chairs and umbrellas, and it's actually a place where, like other breweries around town, customers are actually doing their drinking and eating there on site?
Good question, and no will be the short answer. One of the other aspects, if you have the drawings in front of you. And
Yes, they do.
Okay. On the east side of the structure, we're also looking at the potential of allowing for an outdoor seating patio, which may or may not happen in the future, but it gives us that option if we are allowed this setback variance today.
Yeah.
It would
Well, I guess
handle the
it's
east and the
possible
west.
that that could create a detriment to the people who are living nearby. Fortunately, they are young, and maybe they'll be the people over there on the patio, but...
Well, I'm afraid there aren't any people living on the east side. That's the Stumac building slash,
Okay.
I mean, potentially, if they ever redevelop that structure,
Okay.
maybe there will be apartments and condos in that structure, but presently they're non-existent.
Okay.
Well, thank you.
Any questions or?
Yeah, is that paid parking for the condos behind you there, the Schaefer Street Apartments?
I don't know.
No, it's just,
No, it's just parking.
okay.
Am I speaking out of turn?
That's
Oh,
okay.
no.
Yeah. I have a question, but if you could approach here, please,
Sure.
for a second. What are these two squares?
Those are existing. They're mechanical units.
Okay, I was just wondering if this entire block could be in here somehow.
No, because when you're bringing a forklift in,
Okay?
because of the terrain, you
Okay.
can't actually get to
there.
here.
All right, the trees are going to be in the way.
Not only the trees, but the
That's right.
steepness of here
Slope.
Okay,
just makes it.
okay,
You can't do it.
I understood, thank you. Any questions for the appellant? No?
Let's see if I've got any other questions. Okay.
You may be seated for now, and then we may call you again. Is there anyone wishing to speak in favor of this proposal, this motion, this variance? In favor? No?
I'm in favor.
Anyone wishing to speak in general comment or in opposition? No? Okay. We close the discussion from the floor, and anybody would like to make a motion? Or discuss? Ed?
I move that the Board of Zoning Appeals grant a variance to 237 West State Street from ACC 231001, Table A, Schedule of Bulk Controls, to allow an alteration of a building with a right setback of 10 feet where 25 feet is the minimum requirement.
Second.
Okay, Mr. Baum made the motion, and second by Ms. Hollow. Going over the findings, exceptional circumstances. In my view, I think if this was not adjoining a residential area, you wouldn't be here. So that was an exception.
But apart from that, the terrain is a factor.
Yeah.
Certainly.
You all agree?
Yep.
Okay, practical difficulty, so that generates the practical difficulty as well, right? Mm-hmm. Preservation of equal property rights. I guess this is kind of a uniqueness of the property.
Right.
That's a minimum variance. I think this would be a minimum variance. Absence of detriment. We concluded that there would be none.
Did we?
Did we?
I don't know. I guess we can't envision the future because he hasn't decided how many people he's going to have on the patio.
Yeah,
so,
well, that would be another case that will come
Okay.
to us,
Yes, I
and
think
then
so.
we decide later.
Okay.
This is the second variance, so
Okay.
I forgot that you already had a variance from us. And not of a general nature. Hopefully that would not
Definitely
be the
not.
case. Are we ready to grant this variance? If so, please raise your hand. So you have the variance 4-0. Now we're going to go to the second case, and this requires some reading. The property is 14 North High Street, case number 17-26V, zone is R3. Mr. Brian Wharton and Wharton Properties are the appellant. The appellant is requesting variances for a change to a building from 5 rental units with 9 total tenants to a rooming house with 7 total tenants from ACC 231001, Table A, Schedule of Bulk Controls, to have the left and right setbacks of 0 each, where 8 feet on each side is the minimum requirement. To have a rear setback of 10 feet, where 40 feet is the minimum requirement. To have a structure lot coverage of 49%, where 40% is the maximum allowance. And from ACC 231001, Table B, off-street parking requirements, to allow 1 parking space, where 11 parking spaces are the minimum requirement. And from ACC 230310 to allow 2 principal dwelling structures on 1 lot, where 1 principal dwelling structure is the maximum allowance. And I assume that 11 space is because 4 is going to be in the other building and 7 in this one?
Each unit has to have a minimum of 2. So the building in back has 2 apartments, 2 units. So that back building has to have a minimum of 4, or would have to have a minimum of 4, 2 per unit. Okay. I think they're only going to have 1 person in each unit back there. I'm not sure. But that would account for 4, and then the 7 people that are going to be in the larger principal structure.
Okay.
This unit, the appellant is going to improve this building. He's going to put the sprinkler system in, he's going to improve the building. So we're going to be proactive here, and we're going to look at all the required variances needed so we can bring this up basically out of the grandfathering. And we're just establishing these variances because they needed to be there, whereas before they were there.
Okay.
So we're just addressing the required variances that were actually already there,
Okay.
being used.
Okay.
So,
I was kind of confused whether
Yeah.
7 would be in one building,
Right.
maybe 4 on the other one, but potentially could have 11.
right.
Any questions for the code office? Okay, you may come back again, and just for the record, again, state your name and address, because these are separate cases. Oh, more
Three
goodies,
more pictures.
more pictures. We like pictures. These are all the same pictures?
These are, yes.
Okay.
All of those. And these I just have 2 sets of those.
Okay.
And then I don't know if you guys have.
These go
Check and see.
Yeah. There's 2 sets in here, you said?
Yes, there should be.
I only see
Actually, I
one.
take that back. It's just
One set,
Okay, I
okay.
have that.
Oh, you have that?
Yeah, we have those. You start from here and we pass it
Okay,
on to the
all
left.
right, great. Well, and these were in our packet, so essentially we've already seen these. And it shows us what a messy house they keep. So. Okay, I think we've seen all of these.
Okay,
in the
but not in color.
Not in color.
I don't think you need to provide a variance for a messy house.
Made them a little bit bigger so you could see it.
Yes, sir.
It's me, Mike Carruthers, RVC Architects, 131 West State Street. This is, as said, we're converting 5 apartments into 1 home. The goal is to create a safer home by we'll be adding a fire suppression system. We will be creating an open concept living, dining room, and kitchen area. We will be limiting the living room, dining room, and kitchen space while still providing more spacious, what the city likes to see, which is a 10 by 12 bedrooms, and closet space so that we can discourage clutter and avoid potential fire hazards. We are also providing a 2-bedroom to 1-bedroom ratio to provide a more adequate sized bathrooms. And with those concepts in place, based on the size of the house, we found that the best solution is a 7-bedroom home. There will be no changes to the square footage whatsoever, other than maybe to improve on stairs or, if necessary, a ramp for ADA compliancy. But the idea is we have no intention of putting any party decks or anything like that. We know that the city doesn't like party decks. The home itself is actually over 100 years old, and so the idea is not to try to reduce the house size, but rather work within it and try to do the minimum number of bedrooms, and not have any dead space or wasted space within it that could create issues. The variances that we are requesting, we're requesting them because, one, the property is landlocked. We can't go any further to get any of the setbacks, and with where the 2 buildings are set, there's a little more than 7 feet between the 2 of them, so there's no potential of getting any parking on the site other than maybe bikes or something like that. The home, of course, is a pre-existing home, and we're, like I said, again, I'm concerned about if we try to reduce the building in any way, we'd just destroy the beauty of the building. The other thing that I noticed is that the property is next to Athens Middle School, because normally with parking, sometimes you allow us to do remote, but with a huge chunk of the 250 feet radius is pretty much taken by the middle school, which really limits where we can find parking and makes it somewhat of a detriment to try to find that. And then to restate it, we intend to put no additions on this house. It simply work within the square footage that we have and only add what's required to get people safely in and out. In this, we're looking at, and I've broken it down to four variance requests, and I've labeled them 1, 2, 3, and 4. The first one is to permit the existing building to remain on site with no setbacks and a 10-foot rear setback, provided that the square footage does not increase, and provide an exception, of course, for ramps, stairs, and anything required by code so that occupants can actually get into the building. The variance 2 that we're requesting permit the existing 2 buildings to remain on the site, provided that the square footage does not increase, and again, like the other one, with the exception being for ramps and what's necessary to get into the building. The third one, we have two recommendations for that variance. One is to permit 1 parking spot where 11 are required, and the owner shall promote more sustainable and green alternative transportation, like buses, using the bus system and biking, and that's to allow the reduction for heat island effect. The second, or B suggestion, is to permit 1 parking where 11 are required, and it shall be included in the renter's lease that there is no parking on site, so that they're aware of that before they even sign a lease. And then, of course, the fourth variance is to permit existing 2 buildings remain on site, provided that both building lot coverage does not increase. And that'll take care of the 49% where we're only allowed to have 40. I can go through the reasonings of why. Switch here. For practical difficulty, as I said before, the building is landlocked, and we don't have any access to a second means, like an alleyway. A lot of times in a city, you'll have an alleyway, and you can connect into the alleyway, and that's how you can get parking in and out. But in this case, we don't have that. For exception of circumstances, the property has 2 existing buildings, and as you can see with the plan, the configuration, without moving the buildings, we can't really do anything. And the concern is that if we even tried to move the buildings, we could potentially damage something that's over 100 years old, and that would be a shame. The minimum variance, I really feel that because we're not adding on to it, we are just simply working within the square footages. It makes sense that these are the minimum requirements. The absence to detriment, if you look, a lot of the homes along that route, more than likely you'll find they don't meet the parking, and they've worked pretty well already. And in all honesty, we're permitted to have 11 occupants. We're actually reducing this down to 9. So we are reducing the amount of people, which then reduces the amount of parking required. And if we begin to promote alternative transportation, maybe we can start people to think about I don't need to bring a car to Athens. It's a pain to bring it anyway. Let's rely on alternate means and kind of try to save the earth a little bit. And then, of course, being not of general nature, I think because of the building as old as it is, I think that puts it in that not in general nature
Okay.
area. Any questions?
Any questions? As long as you're standing there, I'm going to ask a question from you folks. If they say in their contract, the rental contract, that we are not providing any parking, so you have to understand that there is no parking space. And maybe 5 years, 10 years from that point, because we are giving a variance, would that become the rule, or do you have to check every time you do their review their
If they
rental?
include it in the contract, in the lease,
Yeah. That's what I guess they wanted to do.
I'm not sure about the legality of us forcing them to add that to the
Well,
lease.
they want to do that, but if that becomes a
Well,
part of variance.
that's their prerogative if they want to. I
Right.
mean, that's not required anywhere else in the city.
Okay.
And quite frankly, I don't understand the need for it. If somebody goes to this property and thinks it looks great, and then they don't realize there's no parking, let the renter beware.
Okay, so
Well,
that's,
there'll be one parking, right?
Right, in their application, the permit will reflect that.
Is it actually impossible to put 2 cars in the driveway?
Well, because of the stacking,
Okay. I thought they could stack.
not in this zone, no.
In this,
You can get probably 3 cars in that driveway.
well, could and legally could, that's
Could, yeah.
two different.
Yeah.
Legal, there's two different things.
And every single one of my leases already, on the bottom of the 3rd page, it says how many parking spots come with this property. So it's not just this one, but everything. I already have it in my lease.
okay. But in the variance, you're talking about providing 1 parking space, right?
Yes, please. State your name and address, please, for the
Ryan
record.
Morton, 82 North Court Street. So, the property existing has a driveway that you can stack like 3 cars, okay?
Okay.
So I'm not trying to create more parking. I can't create more parking. I'm just trying to, I'm gonna give them the driveway, and when I show them the property to them, I'll point out the driveway, and that's the parking that comes with the. I have a house like 2 houses down at 24 North High Street that actually shares a driveway with 26 North High Street. So you can get like 1 car behind 24 North High Street, and 26, who a neighbor owns, you can get a car there, but the whole driveway, it's, I don't know, they work it out between them. So this actually has more parking than that house, and it's, right next door, basically, it's a house away.
But it's very unlikely that the zoning people would come around and say, oh, there are 3 cars in this driveway.
As long as they're not blocking the driveway or anything, we don't care how many cars actually park there, we just care how many actual legal spaces there are.
Well, so
If they're able to fit 2 or 3 into the driveway where it doesn't block the sidewalk
Okay.
or the street, that's fine by us, we're not gonna
Okay.
get out there.
So why don't we just say that there are 3 parking spaces?
Because then we can't say that, but they can do it if they want.
Yeah,
but
they
we
can do
can't
it if they
say that.
want.
Okay, all
we
right.
can't.
I still just put 1 in the lease.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I put in parentheses behind it, like, 3 stacked spots, but I want to, legally it's just 1 spot.
Okay,
Um,
okay.
Do you actually indicate which tenant has the right to park there?
No.
Or you just say first come, first served?
Yeah, see this, I don't have a house like this right now. This house I've only owned for a little over 3 months. And, it's, there's 7 apartments between the main house and the back house. And so, right now, I'm not sure how they work it out. There's always, 3, well, there's not even always 3 cars in the driveway, but, it's a buddy system. I don't know what they do. But this would alleviate that problem because I would be renting it to, I will establish the back house. It's just 2 studio units. It's not 1 bedroom. It's just, studios. And you know, in their lease, I'm gonna make it really clear that, you know, in the bottom, that there's no parking.
Right.
Because the driveway is gonna go with the main house. Yeah, and the main house would ideally be a single-family home, and they'll be able to work it out better than going around knocking on neighbors' doors. Yeah.
Okay. Someone's actually living in there?
Believe it or not, yeah, I know. That actually, yeah, those pictures were taken shortly before he just moved out last month. You know, I saw this nice big brick house, and
It's beautiful.
it's a beautiful house. It really is. But I mean, the inside it's really deplorable. I mean, it has not been maintained at all. And so my idea is this summer is to gut the whole house. You know, run it through the state and get, you know, whatever I got to do there, and rewire the whole house, replumb the house, put the sprinkler system in the house, and, you know, just make it nice. I mean, new windows. I mean, just everything new. Yep. And just, you know, make a single family, open up the foyer. You know, it's got a nice old staircase in it right now, but it's so closed in. I mean, I want to open up the foyer and expose the staircase again. And I don't know, I brought some pictures. I don't know if you want to see these, but I brought some pictures of some other projects that I've done in the past, or places that I own in the area that, you know, are reflective of, you know, like the quality that
I think we want to concentrate
Okay.
on this case. Do you have any more to add? No?
Okay, I have one more question.
I think Penny wants to.
Okay. No, go ahead.
One thing that Brian mentioned, and it kind of went through fast, was...
Name and address.
Oh, sorry. Penny Mullen, RBC Architects, and 131 West State Street. He mentioned that it had been approved and permitted for 11 occupants. What Brian's proposing to do will knock that down to 9 occupants between the two buildings. And I just wanted to bring that to focus, because I thought that was key. So.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I'm not gonna expand the square footage of the house either.
Right.
Well, the supposition here is that it would be impossible to find off-site parking. Have you looked for any?
I have, yeah. I mean, I've looked for parking in that area before this, you know, before I bought this house. I mean, it's non-existent, 250 feet from the top of High Street.
Have you looked farther than 250 feet?
Well, I mean, I'm sure there's some parking, you know, at fairgrounds or something like that, but I mean, I've scanned uptown pretty good for parking, yeah, and there's none. I mean, I tried to buy another lot, but they're using it, so.
Okay. But those people, if they bring cars, they will park them somewhere.
Yeah, but I mean, right now I've got, you know, I don't know, you know, there's like, well, there's another guy that's about to move out, but there's like 9 people living up there right now, and the one gentleman just moved out. I've gutted one of the studios in the back. I'm, you know, remodeling it as, you know, since that person just moved out. But I mean, I don't know where they park. I mean, they park in the drive. The driveway isn't even used all the time. Sometimes there's only 2 cars in the driveway.
Okay.
Questions, John? Okay, you might be seated. Maybe ask your questions again later. I assume that there is nobody here who has any more to say in favor of the variance or in general comment, or not definitely in opposition, right? Okay. We will close the discussion from the floor, and then I think I had one more question for the code office, but I can't remember now. It may come to me. Oh, could you please clarify the legal definition of rooming versus rental units?
6 or more is a rooming house.
Okay.
Under the same roof?
Yeah.
So they share like the area, and so that's the area
Same
for this
building, yeah.
common. Okay.
That's why you're sprinkling it.
Okay. All right. Thanks. Any discussions or anyone who wants to make a motion?
I'll make a motion. I move that the Board of Zoning Appeals grant a variance to 14 North High Street, or granting variances for a change, and then I'm not going to read all the rest of this, just put that into the document.
Verbatim?
Verbatim.
Okay.
Second, anybody?
A second.
John, seconds. Okay, Ms. Hollow, I guess we, as the board, last month, we had a similar case and we made the argument that we are probably creating a unnecessary hardship for appellants who are not changing the footprint. They just want to do some remodeling. Maybe the building is getting too old and does require some remodeling, or maybe they want to make it better, but they're reducing the non-conformity. And they're trying to do something nice for their tenants, and they're not increasing. They have been grandfathered. And by the way, when you look at all those variances, it looks like a lot, but they're all triggered by the same thing. And I actually volunteered to maybe write a statement and maybe approach the city council so this kind of a case has become a general routine, and so they can automatically be handled by the code office. So I'm still working on that, but that was the comment we made last time. If there is a case like this case that they want to improve their property, but in doing so, and by the way, it didn't say how much the cost is going. It says zero in there. I didn't know.
We don't consider that.
I know, but if it's a large cost, then it's a different story. If they're large,
We're good.
but you're good. So it's kind of a minimal cost, because generally, if the cost is a lot more than I don't know how much, then they have to comply with the new code. But this is not the case in here. So I'm comfortable with kind of giving the variance myself, but that's just for me.
Yeah.
So I think would that address the difficult
I can
hardship?
see that they're reducing the number of people.
Yeah, so
that
that's
means
there.
they're coming closer to some kind of compliance,
Right.
if not
You're
all of
making
the
it less
things. Sure.
non-conformity than it was before. Exceptional circumstances? Because it's a landlocked.
I don't think that that's relevant, because how many properties do you know in Athens that are not landlocked? Occasionally there's an alley. I think it would be more reasonable to say that there are two properties here, and one takes up too much space, and you can't get around the driveway, and there's just not enough space.
Preservation of equal property rights.
I think we haven't really talked about that very much. How many other properties in the area have one parking space for 11 people? Isn't that
Is it all
the question?
rentals? Almost all. That's true.
It's all rentals. I just,
Main Street is.
the one at 24 North High, you can get one behind the house, but the driveway in between the two houses are owned by 24 and 26, and you gotta share the whole driveway between the two houses.
I'm glad you said that, but we can't do anything about it because the floor has already been closed. But thank you anyway.
Minimum variance, again, they all are triggered because of just one thing.
What's the one thing?
That one thing is because, all those things are existed. And once you want to do some improvement to the property, then each one of those things will pop in because of the right side, left side, the back side, the front side, and the parking, and all of those.
Right.
Otherwise, they can just keep it as it is and run them without us being able to do anything because it's grandfathered. That's what I'm saying that
Sure,
they are.
I've got it.
Absence of detriment and not of a general nature.
Well, what do you say about absence of detriment?
Well, you tell me if there is anything that you think there is.
Okay, I don't think you can just skip it, so, okay.
Well, yeah, we discussed it.
Okay.
Not of a general nature, yes, no?
Well, it seems to be pretty frequent recently, but
Well,
not so
yeah.
broadly that we have to really consider it at
It's
this
something
point.
that, yeah, this is
Somebody
something
else
that
might
I guess
have
the
to
city
consider it, okay.
council
Yeah, unfortunately, given the nature of Athens and that whole area,
Right.
all of these share a very similar kind of thing, and I think that particular requirement in this case doesn't make a heck of a lot of sense.
Right,
Because
I agree.
they're all going to run into the same problem.
Right, and my concern, I think, is that there are a lot of properties that may and have recently been undergoing renovations, or people want to renovate them.
Yeah.
And my concern is that this board treat them equally and not just say, oh, sure, you need 4 variances, and somebody else
Right.
has to come further into compliance.
Yeah.
So that's my concern, not necessarily about this case, but there have been a lot of them recently. I'm not sure that they have all been treated equally or in exactly the same way, which I think they should be.
Unfortunately, the code assumes that if you make significant changes, you've got to come completely into compliance, and you can't.
That's
There's
right.
no way those houses will ever come into compliance, even on lot size.
Well, I'm thinking about...
And so if there's an improvement moving more toward conformity,
I
I'm
agree
willing
with
to
that.
accept that.
I don't disagree with that. I am concerned that there have been a couple of cases recently. In one case, I was not here, and they seem to give far more privilege to one than to the other, and the case, the variances were similar. So I think that's a concern. So it doesn't really apply to this tonight, but I think it should be a concern.
You said something last time which stuck to me, and I can paraphrase it maybe if you said that one code does not apply to all cases in something in that nature.
No, that's
I
why
cannot
you have a
recall what
zoning
I
board.
said at the time.
That's why you
I have to
have,
go back
that's
and
why
look.
we're here.
Yeah. Are we ready to vote?
Yeah.
All in favor of this variance, please raise your hand.
You think I'm not going to, right? But
We don't care, we have it already here.
You have it
I'm sorry,
anyway.
did you raise your
It's
hand?
true.
Okay,
I did.
you have the variance 4-0.
Yeah.
Okay, going to the minutes of last month, which was October 10, 2017. You were here, right? Good. All
I
three of
move
us
to
were here.
approve the minutes of October, whatever it was, 2017.
And you had a correction to my vote last time. Was that?
No,
Okay, so there was 3-1-1.
right.
All in favor of approving the minutes of October 10? We got 4-0,
I
you were
wasn't
not here.
Yeah.
And unless there's any other business, we are adjourned.
Wonderful.